Welcome back. We're examining the reasons why Uruguayans have voted not to repeal a controversial amnesty law protecting the police and military from prosecution on charges of severe human rights abuses. Is it a case of choosing to keep the peace rather than pursuing the cause of justice? Well, with me to discuss the issue from Montevideo is Felipe Michelini, Vice President of the leftist New Space Party and son of the late Senator Zelmar Michelini, who was assassinated in 1976. From Bogota, we have Javier Surliza, the Americas Director for the International Center of Transitional Justice. He also served as Executive Secretary to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Peru. As we get back to questions, Mr. Surliza, let me ask you this question that came in from a viewer. Now, of course, Uruguay has ordered the extradition of Henry Kissinger, but the issue of whether or not the USA will ever answer for its involvement has come up from many viewers. And this email from David in West Virginia in the USA says, do you think Kissinger will ever be questioned in a court of law about his participation in Operation Condor?
I can't say about the specific case of Mr. Kissinger, but what I can say is that it is quite evident by now, according to the declassified information that the State Department by itself in US has released in the last 15 years, that the participation of the US government in the coups given in the southern cone countries of Latin America, like Chile and Brazil and others, had the active involvement and support of the US administrations at least until at the end of the 70s, when Jimmy Carter started another kind of policies towards human rights. So I think that yes, US should acknowledge a responsibility not only in the support of dictatorships in the middle of a Cold War in which even the thugs and the dictators were preferred instead of democracies in many countries, including Latin America, but also because it concurred in the formation and training of military officers in the School of Americas and other training processes in US that were formed into the so-called national security doctrine that part the world into the bad and the good, in which the bad, the communist, and every single person that were suspected to be allied with the communists had to be eliminated. So this was, of course, a political message very damaging towards the democracy and human rights. Right. So I think that beside the personality of Henry Kissinger, US, of course, has a responsibility pending to be acknowledged in this issue.
Now, Mr. Michelini, on that topic, we had this email from a viewer in Michigan in the USA. Linda Taylor wrote in asking or saying, crimes against humanity always need to be punished. As far as Uruguay goes, this will keep happening unless the US shuts down the School of the Americas. They have an agenda and have produced many dictators and military coups. Now, I wonder, in your opinion, how important is it for the US to answer for its actions that have led to much of the shaping of politics in Latin America, certainly towards the end of the last century?
Oh, that's clear. The training on the School of the Americas was a key issue on those responsible later for the coup d'etat and state terrorism. So I think that the US has a lot to say on this, and I think it's important to, in some way, to reconsider the role of the US during those times. I'm sure that crimes against humanity should be punished, and those who cooperated or in some way were involved in those crimes should be prosecuted before the courts.
The question that just came in from our live station, Mr. Surliza, this came in from Petros in Cyprus via live station, our chat room online. It says, if criminals are granted amnesty, then what would stop others from repeating the same crime? It's a simple question, but I guess it comes down to setting a standard and setting a tone that perhaps sends a message as well.
In 1983, the first Truth Commission in history, the National Commission on the Disappeared in Argentina, titled its final report with the word "never again." And this phrase, "never again," includes a powerful message of the need to guarantee the non-repetition of the crude events that took place in our countries, and particularly in Uruguay and in other southern cone countries during the 70s. the despise of the human being, the irrelevance of human rights, the violation of the basic conditions of human dignity in the disappearances in the Southern Cone was widespread, was impugned, and impunity sent a powerful message to violators that any crime can be committed on the name and on behalf of superior values. So the message from our friend in Cyprus is very relevant, in a way in which the impunity is not a matter of the past, it's a matter of the present. If we send to the future generations the message that crimes can be committed because no justice will be met, we are preparing the destroy of our democracies and the destroy of the hopes of our children. So the fight for prosecutions, the fight for justice, is not a fight for the past, it's a fight for the future.
But of course, Mr. Sirlica, what you have is issues that are being discussed and looked at from about a quarter of a century ago. So I wonder, when you look at the rest of the region, and the history they also share, the complicated history they also share, what Uruguay's referendum has, what implications it has for other countries in the region in terms of questioning how they move forward with issues of amnesty or not?
Latin America has moved forward a lot in terms of make crimes accountable and fight against impunity. As mentioned by Mr. Michelini, the Inter-American system on human rights has been very clear regarding the non-applicability of amnesties and any kind of pardons regarding crimes against humanity, war crimes, acts of genocide. In this sense, Latin America is pioneering in the world in terms of accountability. The decision taken in a vote in Uruguay can send, of course, troubling messages to other countries. However, I think, and I think we can agree with Mr. Michelini in this, that judges and the Supreme Court in Uruguay have the last word in this. And the Supreme Court in Uruguay last week has said clearly, in a specific case, that majority votes cannot determine the rights of the victims and the possibilities to pursue justice. So I think that even if this is a troubling message, and in countries like Brazil, in which there is also a struggle against impunity, we can be confident that judges and tribunals in the rule of law can affirm justice and order prosecutions in a proper way.
Well, let me ask Mr. Michelini then, what happens here? You, as listening to what Mr. Sirlica has just said about the Supreme Court's decision, what the people have said in Uruguay, is the Supreme Court's will independent of the people? Is the Supreme Court able to act independently? What happens next in Uruguay?
I think that all relatives that think that they have a case, they will submit it to the courts, and the courts will proceed. And if the government says that they want to apply the impunity law, they could just go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will apply the same decision, saying that this law is void, is not, cannot be applied, and is against the Uruguayan constitution and is against the international treaties and covenants signed by Uruguay. So in that sense, the referendum was a good opportunity to push forward another step against impunity. But the sentence that the Supreme Court established last Monday shows that justice in Uruguay could be done. And I think it's very important to recall what happened in 1989 after the referendum, that the president of that moment said that this issue was closed. Well, Uruguayans still are very committed to justice, truth, and working for putting the perpetrators in jail.
Well, gentlemen, listen, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We have run out of time, but thank you very much for taking part in this debate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And remember, you can follow the show via Facebook. Go there now and you'll get an update on the topics we're looking at this week. You can also give us your questions and comments there for us to include in the show. That's it from me and the team. We'll see you next time.